I just wanted to give a quick introduction to both me and Elliot. We're taking over the 5310 funding cycle for this year. I know from some people in the past that have applied for this cycle or that are currently still in the process of last year's cycle. I know you guys are probably a little more familiar with Claire and John that had been working on this. And so it has been handed off to us. So just to start, I'm Hannah Ruskin. I'm the associate planner here at MORPC. I'll be the main contact for everything about the 5310 2024 funding cycle. And then Elliot, if you wanted to give a quick introduction really quick.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah. I'm Elliot Lewis, principal planner at MORPC. I will be overseeing Hannah doing most of the 5310 work, both pre-award and post-award. So any questions you have about that, if you have vendors who have questions, you can send them through both of us, and we'll make sure that everything gets routed properly. But thank you for showing up on your lunchtime hour. We promise we won't take up too much of your time. I just want to be able to go through this, and I'll give back to Hannah to do so.
Yeah, of course. Awesome. So before I start going through the slides, I just want to make sure everyone can see that, right?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Okay, awesome. So jumping into these slides. So here's some information about the 5310 funds. This year, we have about $1.5 million in federal funds for expenses related to vehicles, infrastructure, and anything that helps to expand the efforts and resources for things like public transportation agencies, human services agencies, private providers of public transportation services, and so on. Mainly, the 5310 funds are to help meet the needs of seniors and individuals with disabilities when the public transportation there already isn't efficient enough or is inappropriate or unavailable for meeting these needs. And then, so just to get into a little more detail about the purpose of the 5310 funds, like I said, these are to enhance the mobility for older adults and people with disabilities by providing capital and operating programs. This is to help meet the needs of the transit dependent, improving access to fixed route transit services and any alternatives to public transportation. And so those eligible for these funds, like I said, individuals with disabilities. For that, you could be any age as defined by the federal government. And then for seniors, anyone 65 years or older. And so this slide really quick just goes over the eligible applicants for these funds. So our service area is primarily in the Columbus urbanized area. So that's mainly Franklin County, as well as parts of Delaware County, Licking County, Fairfield County, and some areas in Union and Pickaway County. So to be eligible for these funds, you must meet the federal definition of either a private nonprofit organization, a state and local government authority, public or private operators of public transportation services. And if you have any questions about your eligibility in this urbanized area or anything, please call or email me or Elliot, and we'll be able to discuss that a little further with you. And so getting into the eligible projects, for the 5310 funds, 55% of that are what we call traditional projects. Those include those van and bus purchases, things like wheelchair lifts, ramps, securement devices, as well as things that aren't exactly related to the vehicles, like the transit-related scheduling or dispatching systems, mobility management programs, preventative maintenance, radios and communication equipment, as well as the purchase and installation of benches, shelters, bus stops, things like that. And then the other half of the funds, the other 45%, are those non-traditional, and those can be things more related to travel training, building accessible paths to bus stops, improving signage or wayfinding technology within your area, and any mobility management programs. And so this slide really quick just kind of highlights some of our past projects from 2023. As you can see, looking at this, we had a lot of contracted transportation, some vehicle purchases, a lot of funds going towards preventative maintenance, as well as some going towards construction. Like I said earlier, constructing something like a bus shelter that is also included as an eligible project for the 5310 funds.
Real quick, please note that if you are proposing any construction projects, since this is federal funds, this has to comply with federal NEPA environmental clearance. So if you are proposing that, we will work with you and the FTA to go through that process to make sure there's no delay in getting your funds.
All right, and then so getting into the federal funding stipulations, MORPC is a designated recipient of the FTA funds for the Columbus urbanized area. Awardees of these funds are the subrecipients, and those subrecipients fall into two different categories, those for non-vehicle awards, as well as those for vehicle awards. When it comes to how the funding is distributed for non-vehicle awards, it starts with the subrecipient incurring the cost of the project and then submitting the invoice to MORPC. MORPC then processes those invoices through the FTA system, and then MORPC reimburses the subrecipient that cost. For the vehicle awards, it's a little different. MORPC retains the subrecipient's local share, and MORPC orders and pays for the vehicles, and then MORPC is reimbursed by the FTA. And then so getting into a little more detail about that local share, 80% of the funds for each project are from federal funding, and then there is a 20% local share. Elliot, I don't know if you wanted to add a little more detail about that specifically.
No, I think you covered it. If you have any questions, by the way, during this, you can ask at the end or throw them in the chat right now. I'm also monitoring that.
And so going into a little more detail about those federal funding stipulations. For the local match, these are sources. These are some of the sources that we can accept. That includes state or local apportionments, non-DOT federal funds, dedicated tax revenues, private donations, revenue from human services contracts, net income generated from advertising. So this is just a little list of where you can find that local match. If you have any questions about how you can get that local match together or anything like that, again, just reach out to Elliot or I, and we're happy to discuss that with you and answer any questions that you may have. And so as we take federal funds, we also have to comply with the federal funding requirements. And so that includes annual certifications and assurances, the Title VI program, which I'll get into a little more detail here soon, some civil rights, signage and everything, and accounting systems, financial management, reporting, those sorts of things. And then so when we receive your applications, here's some of the criteria that we look for when we're processing those. What's the description of your project? What are you looking to use the funds for? Is there a demonstration of need? Do you have the capacity to complete the project? How effective is your agency or organization and team? What does your coordination and outreach look like? What vehicles and equipment do you already have? And what are you trying to improve? Do you have the ability to meet the federal requirements, as well as those coordinated plan goals? And if you were a part of this program in the past, how did your past performance look? So those are all of the basic selection criteria that we look for when we receive applications. And then here are some of the different groups that are a part of our advisory committee. Our advisory committee is a group that we use to process these applications a little more when we go into selecting projects to be funded under the program of projects. That includes groups for our CAC and TAC, Delaware County, Franklin County, and private health advocate. And so kind of going into a little more detail about those requirements I was talking about before, here are some details about the Title VI requirements. These next two slides show information about submitting the different types of assurances to ODOT. These documents are going to be included in the application files that we have. And at the end of this presentation, I'll go through and show you guys the form stack that we use for the application. At the bottom of that has a whole file with all the supporting documents needed. Within those supporting documents are some the Title VI assurances that need to be signed and submitted just so we can keep up with the requirements regarding this. And so this just goes over some of those details. Here's another slide just kind of going into a little more detail about that as well. And then going on. So for the Section 5310 projects, these must be consistent with the goals and objectives included in the locally developed coordinated plan. So right here is our webpage link to MORPC's regional mobility plan. Within this are goals that we are trying to meet. And when we go through processing the applications, we look to see if your project is, going to help us meet one of these goals, or if it's meeting one of these goals within your community. Here are some examples of the goals of the Delaware and Franklin County coordinated plan. They do a separate plan than us now, aside from our regional mobility plan, but their goals include expanding services for disadvantaged populations, encouraging flexible policies to improve transit accessibility, and increasing awareness of programs and services. So when we look through these projects, we're seeing, do they help to meet one of these goals? And then here's the regional mobility plan for 2022 to 2025 that MORPC has. You'll see here on the left or on the right is a picture of the 9 counties included in MORPC's regional mobility plan. We'll be checking to make sure that projects meet one of the 3 goals that are included on this slide: maintaining and improving a level of service, encouraging stakeholder and public support for transit, as well as improving awareness of transportation options. These are just strategies for improving transportation for our area and to address those gaps and unmet transportation needs. And then, so here is just a snapshot of the semi-annual reporting requirements that we use for 5310 funds. All subrecipients with 5310 funded vehicles must comply with the semi-annual reporting requirements. As you can see here, the report period 1 is January 1st through June 30th. Reports are due July 31st. Reporting period 2 is July 1st through December 31st. Reports are due January 31st. And so this semi-annual report is going to be through the ODOT form stack. This is the same as it was last year as well for past subrecipients that have been a part of the 5310 program in the past. So it's not too different. At the bottom of the page here, you can see we included a link for that form stack. Again, it's the same as the one from last year, but if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. And then here's just some information on our technical assistance review. These reviews are randomly assigned for all subrecipients every 3 years. So if you're a part of these funds, you're probably going to get an email from either Elliot or I about this technical assistance review. This just helps us keep up with the vehicles that are in use. And so that includes site visits as well as utilizing the ODOT format, which is also an electronic submission about the review. This just helps us to see if the vehicles are in use, how are they being used, and just keeping up and keeping an eye on everything. And then here's a link to the online application through FormStack. This is live as of today. So the application opens today, and then you have a month to fill out the applications. They will be due on October 25th. And I kind of touched on this briefly earlier, but uploads for attachments and any of those extra files and requirements that we need to be signed will be located at the end of at the bottom of that form stack page. And I'll show you that once we get through the presentation, just so you guys are able to be familiar with what that looks like and where everything is located.
And I went ahead and put a link to the form stack application on the chat too.
Awesome. And then here's just a little snapshot of the 2024 funding availability that we have for this year. So for the formula funding, it's about $1.7 million. After that 10% administration costs, the total application funds that we have available for projects is about that $1.5 million. And then here's a little look at the timeline. As you can see, we've already announced the funding cycle, as well as the workshop. That's today. We're here doing the virtual workshop, as well as the application portal opened. Like I said earlier, that application portal will close on October 25th. Applications are due at 5 p.m. that day. And then the week of November 11th is when we go through project scoring and going through any of the advisory committee recommendations that will be included in our program of projects. December of 2024, that's when we'll do our TIP amendment and approval, go through some extra steps of that advisory committee, making sure that we're going through that process to identify who will be chosen for projects. January of 2025 is when we do our STIP amendment and we get our approval from the FTA. And then February of 2025 is when we'll do our grant submittal to TRAMS, and the funding agreements will be finalized and everyone will have their contracts and funding will be sent out. And so I know I kind of went through those slides pretty quickly, but if there were any questions or if anyone had anything that they wanted to say, we're open to those now.
We'll bring up the application just to, so you can get familiarized with it real quick as well. So if you have any questions about that, we can go through that in real time as well. Yeah, Judy. You're muted. Still muted, hold on. You can't hear, we can't hear you, Judy.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, good. Okay. So I'm in Reynoldsburg. We have not had a transportation system ever. And I'm just seeing through those awards that have been done in the past, some people have contract services and others buy their own vans. What's the difference with that? And is it all funded?
Yeah, so if it's an eligible activity, again, for the population served, contract transportation or owning the vehicles, that is a local decision. If you obviously own vehicles, MORPC keeps a lien on the vehicles, as we're the ones that purchase it technically, but you would still have just the tracking that you have to do, the upkeep you have to do. But if you have the city staff available to do it, that is totally an option. Otherwise, you can contract with any of the number of providers around.
Okay.
It's really just however you're comfortable in terms of maintaining rolling stock, which in future years preventive maintenance requests and such can be used for that as well.
Yeah, I'm again new to it, so I don't know what is a good fit because we've not done it before. It's a real need in the community. So I just wonder if starting out with a contract service might be a good option and then try to roll it into our own app to see how it works.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad option. Anybody else online have any experiences and any advice? If not, we can talk later one-on-one and really think through what your needs are.
JM here from City of Dublin.
Hey, JM.
We're one of the communities that use it to pay for contracted services. So we hire a third-party company. In this case, we use Share Mobility, which I think Hillier does as well. So we pay them to provide that service, and then we get reimbursement from this grant opportunity to help pay for some of that. So there are benefits in that respect that we don't want to be a transportation company full out, so we can kind of hire someone to do that, but still maintain that service and offer it to the public. So it's one way to do it. There's other models here too, if anyone else wants to chime in.
And do you take all the reservations, JM? Do you do that, or does that contract service do all that?
Contract service does that. Of course, we're available as staff, but it's really we're the kind of the second go through after the company that's hired to do the service. They handle like the dispatching, the software routing, things of that nature, insurance, hiring the staff for you, vetting them. So it's more of a turnkey solution in this case.
Okay.
And JM,
And
for
then-
you, what's typically the contract duration and structure?
It can be anywhere from 6 months to a year. I say that because before the pandemic, we did a year. After the pandemic, we did 6 months due to we weren't sure at the time what was going to happen, but we want to make sure we have some flexibility. I think the longer contract might be better for an operator to have some assurances that they'll be able to provide that service for that duration. So they may be able to offer you maybe some better terms for cost per hour of operation or things of that nature. It's, you really can negotiate the best terms you can on behalf of your city. And Judy, I'm happy also to connect with you offline just to share a little bit more of our program.
Yeah, maybe I need some more information. Just trying to get this started. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we can definitely coordinate and schedule something after this.
Okay. And one other question, Hannah, is the information you put at your slideshow, is that available?
Yes, yeah. So we can also send that out to everybody at the end of the presentation, as well as we're going to update our webpage with a link to the presentation as well as this recording in case anyone wants to look at it afterwards.
And I'll go ahead and put a link in the chat to our webpage too, just so you have it. I think that answers your question too, Frank, right? Good.
And then also I will pull up a screen now, as long as there are no other questions, unless anyone did have anything else that they wanted to add really quick. But other than that, I'll go ahead and share my screen again, and I'll actually show you from our 5310 webpage how to get to the application form stack. So let me pull that up really, really quickly. All right, so I just want to make sure everyone can see that.
Yep.
All right, so here is the form stack webpage for the application. Like I said, this application did open today. It must be fully completed and submitted by October 25th, 2024 at 5 p.m. Your applications will be reviewed by MORPC staff for accuracy and scoring, as well as the advisory committee. Funding sources available for the 2024 funding cycle. We have about $1.5 million available. And then the eligible project service area, those in the urbanized area of Columbus, so Delaware and Franklin counties, as well as portions of Fairfield and Licking counties. And so this kind of just goes over some of that information that I already talked about in the presentation. And then at the end of the page here are the files, the supporting documents, and package download that you would need to download, fill out, sign all of the information in that package for the application. If you did do applications in the past with us, these supporting documents would need to be refilled out for this funding cycle as well.
Just a note on that, that download is a zip file full of those individual files. If for some reason your IT or security doesn't allow you to download that, just let us know. We'll make sure we get those to you.
Yeah, and then also at the bottom of this page here is just some extra information. There's my email or my number if you guys need to reach out to me to ask any questions about the details of the application. And then just to make sure that when you start and submit the application, that all of those supporting documents are included so that you'll be considered fully. Make sure that's all submitted by October 25th.
think to add to that, thank you, Hannah. You know, just to be frank, this is Hannah and I's first time going through this application cycle before, and I know it's the first time for some of folks on the call here as well. We are happy to sit down with you individually to talk about your request to go through the application process. We want to make this as easy as possible. So if you have any questions at all, please let us know.
All right, well, if there are no other questions, that does conclude our presentation today. I know we finished a little earlier than the time that we had scheduled off. So as long as there are no other questions, then I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you,
you so
guys.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.